The Tuesday, January 12th, 2021 meeting of the San Juan County Council. If you could rise in your space and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We don't have any excused absences. I just wanted to make a note on the agenda. The item number 6, the vacation rental permit application moratorium discussion, is down at the bottom, mainly because Amy Vera can be able to call in later in the meeting, but not at the first part of the meeting. And that's why it is located there. So anyway, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of December 8th?
Point of information. Since we weren't officially in attendance at those meetings on December 8th and the special meeting on December 30th, can we actually approve those minutes?
Well, you've got a very good point there.
Mr. Stevens, it's a point of parliamentary procedure, and yes, the new council can approve those minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes.
I believe you have to say the dates.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I move to approve the minutes from the County Council meeting December 8th and December 30th.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 8th and December 30th. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Have you had a chance to review the January 5th retreat minutes?
Yes.
I have.
And I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the January 5th and January 6th, 2021 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for January 5th and 6th of 2021. Any discussion of them? Corrections? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 3-0. Have you had a chance to look at the consent agenda? And if so, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda for this meeting, January 12th, 2021.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda for January 12th, 2021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. I don't believe we have any correspondence for today. So without further ado, I'll move into public access time. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Let me see, I've got to get my participants up here. If you're familiar, oh, thank you. I was going to ask you if you were interested in saying something, please, addressing the council, to please raise your hand, but you have all figured that out on your own. Thank you. So I will start with the list or the order of the list I have. So first one up is Lisa Byers. Please unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, so welcome County Council to your 2021 session. So glad to see you guys there, and also very pleased that you're taking this action. I'm a member of the Vacation Rental Work Group, and in 2019, we launched a petition to enact a moratorium on vacation rentals. And there are now more than 3,000 signatories to that petition. So I believe there is political will and support for the action that you're taking today. People signed that for a variety of reasons. Some wanted to reduce the erosion of year-round rental housing. Some wanted to protect our rural character. And others really focused on maintaining the quality of life in their neighborhoods and on our island as a whole. So I think better regulation of vacation rentals is part of our stewardship of this place. And I want to invoke the words of Eleanor Howard, who was, I believe, the first female county commissioner. And she said, "You have to be a little more careful with an island." And so it is in that spirit that I applaud you in taking this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Anne Marie Shanks.
Oops.
Oh, you're still muted, Anne Marie.
Like I'm able to unmute.
There you go.
Oops. It's
You're
muting
just
me.
muted. There you go. Now you're unmuted.
Okay, so good morning, and I'm Anne Marie Shanks. I'm from Deer Harbor on Orcas, and I'm wishing each of you the very best in 2021. And I really want to thank you and the staff for doing this work during these turbulent times. I really, really appreciate your service to government and to me and the people of the islands. I'm a member of the Orcas Women's Coalition, and many of our members signed the vacation rental permit, and we were petitioning to have a moratorium, which was presented, I think, in December of 2019. Since that time and before then, we've had the Deer Harbor Plan Review Committee, which I'm also a member of, ask the council for a moratorium. And then that group with the East Sound Plan Review also asked for a moratorium. This past fall, the Planning Commission asked for a moratorium. So I think the time is right, and I'm here to support the emergency moratorium proposed by Councilwoman Wolf, and I urge you to go forward with that today. And I just want you to know that I will be there for you and to help you be successful in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Toby.
Yes, thank you, and I echo the warm greetings and congratulations from the others. And this is a auspicious moment in the 2021 progression of the County Council, and we're all grateful for it. Yesterday we heard, I don't know whether it's Amy or Erica, but they described the process of this particular version of a moratorium as a kind of act now, justify later. The nature of an emergency is such that you need to take action quickly and then kind of figure it out why later on. And that a key part of that, of course, is a finding and a description of harm. So I'd like to address harm. That this finding, I suspect, is supposed to take place on the 25th of January, on or about that time frame. So, you know, in thinking about that last night, I just said, maybe it would be helpful if the County Council knew at least what we meant by harm. So what I have to say is kind of anecdotal. It's not supposed to be massive data, but it's instructive, and it represents my thinking anyway on this subject. One day in, I don't know, late 2018 or early 2019, a crew arrived at a certain bend in Rosario Road close to where I live. And they pulled out, yellow tape and chainsaws, and they stripped out the trees in about a 5-acre plot there that spans the road. in what I would consider to be a rather brutal assault on environmental, quality there. They took the trees out right to the property line, came in with bulldozers and ripped out the stumps and a massive pile of soil and roots and everything. And then 3 inexpensive structures were put there with shed roofs and, just small, what I would, if I wanted to use the colloquial term, I'd say ticky-tacky type of structures. These were spec homes, and they were quickly purchased by people wanting to put them into the vacation rental market, as was expected. I think maybe one of them is privately owned, the other 2. I personally know the owner of the other 2. I'm good friends. We, socialize with these people, and they're wonderful people, and this is not in any way reflective on them, rather on the process and the environment, the work environment in which this activity goes forward. So these structures are a far cry, from what we generally see around the islands with homes nestled in the trees and A-frame windows and so forth. Rather, this was as I say, was kind of a brutal assault on the environment, and probably visible from 30,000-foot levels. Looking down from an airliner, you could see that block cut out. There was absolutely no regard for aesthetics whatsoever, and at least the home that's below the road is right smack in the watershed. So the sustainability aspects were also deficient here. And to me, this represents our island's environment effectively bleeding from the scars of tourism or over-tourism. And if the purpose of the moratorium is to stop the bleeding, as we've said all along, I think that creates one justification for what we're doing here, because this bleeding is taking place all over the islands. Not every time, there certainly are appropriate and attractive developments, but it's things like this that are the density, the proximity of these 3 places, the density of it, and the failure of any regard for environmental quality there. I think that's harm. That's what, in part, what we mean by harm. And that's something that we're looking, to curtail with this moratorium. So that's one part of it. Another good example, I think there's others that have provided more data on this, is the stress on water and septic, and places, especially where the water table is being drawn down net year over year gradually, and saltwater intrusion, has been a factor. And here again, failure to act on this kind of a thing is harm, and it's lasting harm, and it's harm that is difficult or impossible to reverse. That's the nature of these things. Perhaps more will be put on the record when we get to hearings on this and so forth, but I just wanted to illustrate these aspects of the harm part of this equation, in hopes that it will help us steer, our process going forward. So with that, thank you very much, and look forward to the discussion later on today.
Thank you, Toby. Judy Scott. Judy, you need to unmute yourself. There you go. Oh, you remuted yourself.
Judy, you're still muted.
Judy, muted.
Got that. Huh.
There you go.
How's that work? Okay. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear.
Okay. I'll start over again then. Thanks very much. Good morning. I'm Judy Scott. I live with my husband, Don Stillman, in Olga on Orcas Island. And I know you have a lot on your plate that you're tackling. And I really, truly appreciate that you're taking up this issue of vacation rental permits, because it's been a really pressing issue for quite a number of people across the county. I urge the council to vote today to adopt an immediate moratorium on the issuance of vacation rental permits, as council member Cindy Wolf's proposed yesterday, to be effective at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow, January 13th. From my perspective as an Orcas resident, I believe that there are compelling reasons to do this. First, serious concerns have been raised that the current vacation rental permit system has had a very negative effect on neighborhoods on Orcas, affecting the quality of island life, the affordability of housing for the residents, and the preservation of natural resources. It's definitely time to take action to address these problems. Second, a moratorium is an essential ingredient in creating the space for you as a council to consider and enact sensible reforms. Having carefully reviewed the situation, the Planning Commission recommended you adopt this type of moratorium at its November meeting last year. The moratorium was viewed as an essential step before considering a list of other concrete recommendations to change the current vacation rental permit system. Without an immediate moratorium in place, the problems you have been asked to address will only be exacerbated, and possible solutions that you might conceive and want to enact will be harder to implement. We already know that the permit applications our current permit applications are pending. Knowing that changes may be in the works, it is reasonable to assume that even more property owners will be motivated to apply for a vacation rental permit under its current rules. Unfortunately, the additional grant of permit applications will lock in place more permits that run with the land, not with the property owner, or other kinds of features that you may wish to change. The effectiveness of other changes you might consider would therefore be similarly thwarted. The vesting of rights in new permits cannot be easily undone by future reforms you might want to enact. Further, I understand that there are approximately 300 permits that are of vacation rental holders that are not in compliance right now. It has also been explained that the enforcement system that applies to those permits would require significant attention and work by the county staff if you wish to move to revoke them. So why continue to grant more permits that would add to this enforcement problem and would burden the staff even further before you determine whether the enforcement mechanism should be changed for future new permits? In summary, I urge you to adopt an immediate moratorium on vacation permits so you can proceed with a sensible work plan and deliberations over various recommendations without adding more complications and problems to the permit landscape before you even begin that work. Thanks so much, and I really appreciate your time and taking this up today.
Thank you, Judy. The next person I have is MG. I don't know if you wanted to address the council or not. You are unmuted right now, so are you going to address the council or? Okay. I'm going to move on. I have a phone number that ends in 6677.
Yeah, good morning. This is Johannes. Good morning, council. My name is Johannes Krieger. As an owner of San Juan Property Management based on San Juan Island, I am very familiar with vacation rentals. I find it interesting that there were several calls about vacation rental moratorium yesterday, and callers mentioned that there was going to be a discussion about a vacation rental moratorium, but at the same time, it was not on the agenda. So I'm kind of concerned about that. The active number of legal vacation rentals have been steadily decreasing, and the number of applications for new vacation rentals has also been decreasing. I would recommend that before the council act on any form of vacation rental moratorium, that the council obtain a full report from the Department of Community and Development. Otherwise, this will realistically create a serious workload burden for that department, a department which is already actively and effectively enforcing the changes to vacation rental permits that the county council recently enacted. These previously enacted changes really do seem to be working, and I urge the council to let the Department of Community and Development follow through with these changes. Also note that this would be a very lively topic that will take the county's focus away from many other important topics that will need to be addressed in order to get through these incredibly uncertain times. One further comment, many times people mention that a cause of a lack of affordable housing is because of vacation rentals. Please note that very few legal vacation rentals would realistically ever be long-term affordable housing rentals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Johannes. Next number is ends in 7508. Okay. And the last number I have is 9050. Do you wish to address the council?
We'll just be listening in. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm
yes.
Number 90. Yeah, good morning. Hi, this is Jan Sholapodi, and I'm on audio only. But I just wanted to quickly say I'm a Lopez resident, and I'm also a vacation rental owner, and I would like to encourage the council not to take what I consider to be a heavy-handed tactic in enacting a moratorium for vacation rentals right now. I do believe that we can put a really realistic cap system in, and I do believe there are a lot of improvements that can be made to the current system. But I think that wholesale stopping it without warning people that may already have, plans in place is, like I say, just really heavy-handed. And also, I do think it will put undue strain on the county, given what's going on in the world right now. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jan. And I'm going to go back to the number ending in 7508. Did you want to address the council?
Yes, this is Marcy Montgomery. I'm on the board of the Agricultural Guild, and I participate in the Orcas Women's Coalition. My interest beyond just the moratorium is looking into processes that other communities around the country, large and small, are doing to look at taxation of any vacation rental to build and increase a pool of funds for future affordable housing for residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of my list. So we'll move from citizens access onto our first item, which we are altering from what we have been doing is the COVID-19 update. We do have a Tuesday morning briefing every week, which comes before this meeting. But anyway, the most important part right now is we understand what we are still doing, which is tracing, ring testing, quarantine, and response. But the newest part that we need to be kept up on in the public is the vaccine rollout. So I believe probably we have Kyle Dodd and Mark Tompkins.
Good morning, Council. Kyle Dodd, Environmental Health Manager, San Juan County Health and Community Services, also serving as the Incident Commander for the county's COVID response. So yes, I'm going to touch on high-level vaccine rollout, and then if the Council wishes, I can pass it over to Mark to give an update on the roadmap to recovery. So you guys can think about that and we can transition there if you'd like. So vaccine rollout, as everybody is probably well aware,
out there covering in the middle of a pandemic.
So as everybody is well aware, vaccine supplies are limited. And so because of that limitation, there is state-approved guidance for us to deliver vaccines to those at the highest risk first. And there is a phased plan. Phase 1A is the earliest phase. That includes high-risk healthcare workers in healthcare settings, first responders, long-term care facility residents and staff, and then phase A1 Tier 2 was added, which includes all other workers at risk in healthcare settings. So locally here, we are well on our way to complete vaccinations based on the number of doses we received and the clinics that we have either had over the last 2 weeks or are scheduled to have this week to get through that phase 1A, both tier 1 and 2 population. So we have clinics scheduled on San Juan Island on Wednesdays, Lopez on Thursdays, and Orcas on Fridays, just as a general recap for where we've been over the last couple weeks. We have delivered 200 vaccinations so far. There are another 100 scheduled between the 3 clinics for this week, with some additional slots that we are working, our scheduling team is working to fill for the Orcas clinic on Friday. Again, making sure that we are making outreach to all those in phase 1A. We have a very good handle on the providers and EMS. We're just down to the home healthcare workers, those that are independent healthcare workers, and transitioning to those other workers in high-risk healthcare settings. So once we get beyond phase 1A, the state has defined phase B, which consists of 4 different tiers. Again, the tiering is important because the vaccine supply is limited, and we are unsure at any point in time what quantities of vaccine that we may receive. So anything we're doing at the local level is obviously predicated upon the fact of that the vaccine supply has to be there. So once we again transition to phase B, there is under B1, it includes all people 70 years or older, and those that are 50 years or older in multi-generational households. So those that are 50 years or older, taking care of individuals that cannot live on their own, so elders. Phase B2, that's where we get into the high-risk critical workers. And again, there is an age specification there due to, in order to prioritize. So those high-risk critical workers, 50 years or older, in congregate settings, i.e. Grocery stores, school district staff, anybody in childcare, and so forth. Phase B3 widens that age range. So people 16 years or older with 2 or more comorbidities, or basically underlying health conditions. And then finally, phase B4, as we transition there, that's going to be high-risk critical workers under the age of 50 years old. So again, all those grocery store clerks, teachers, all those folks that are under 50 as well as staff and volunteers in other congregate settings. So that's kind of the roadmap of where we're going. We're fielding a lot of calls regarding timing and when folks can get vaccines. Obviously, it is a moving target, but as of last week, the State Department of Health believed that we would be in Phase B through the end of March or likely into April, depending on, again, the vaccine supply. So we want to be as realistic as we can when we're speaking to people and set the expectation that we could be in this Phase B for several months here, and we're asking that all those that are very eager to get the vaccine, which we're happy about, that they just be patient and continue those non-pharmaceutical interventions like the face covering and the social distancing, and be very cautious when you have to travel off island for medical appointments and the like. That you're continuing to do what we have done over the last 9 months to limit the spread until both the vaccine becomes more readily available and both health and community services staff can ramp up vaccinations, as well as our community medical providers, giving them an opportunity to come on board. So as it stands right now, health and community services staff and our team have given all the vaccines in the county to date. There has been some late updates on medical providers being approved by the State Department of Health to also come on board and receive vaccine allocation and start vaccinating as well, which will be very much welcomed by our team. So that's kind of my high-level overview. Again, I'm certainly open to answering any questions, and we can throw it over to Mark for any questions related to the roadmap to recovery, if that's of interest.
Council, Cindy or Christine? Oh, Cindy, I see your hand up. Sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, Kyle. I have received inquiries from residents on Orcas Island wanting to know where they should go for vaccine and if they need to sign up for it. These people are over 70, and the information they're receiving is that they should go to their private care providers, but apparently the private care providers are not prepared to provide those vaccines.
Right. Very, very good question. So right now, again, Health and Community Services is the only provider in the county that has received vaccine, and that vaccine is being dedicated to Phase 1A population. So we are receiving quite a few calls from those that are in Phase B1, so over 70, like you're describing, and we're telling those folks just to be patient. When we are at a stage where we're ready to transition to B1, we will message very broadly on where folks can go to get those vaccines, how they should sign up. And again, we're hoping that once we transition to B1, that we'll also be able to tell them that there are local medical providers and pharmacies also on board to be able to give those shots. So the short answer is, when we're ready to transition to B1, we will broadly announce through our public information officer how those residents can access that vaccine.
And may I follow up with whether there's any indication how soon B1 will come into effect?
So as we transition and finish up Phase A1, we would be ready to transition to Phase B1 shortly after, so within the next week or two, and that will be solely dependent upon the amount of vaccine that's available. So that could happen relatively rapidly once we complete our phase 1A, and we would just be dependent upon our order of vaccine from the state.
Christine?
No questions, thank you.
So I would be interested in the roadmap from Mark, but first, Kyle, what are we doing to, well, I'll just say what I think. I think we really need to come up with a plan to amp this up, whether we can afford it, whether we can do it. But I think we need a plan to be able to amp this up, because at 100, I mean, we're talking 150 weeks at the rate we're vaccinating people to get the county done. So, you know, maybe in 3 years, we'd all be vaccinated at this rate. So I know that there might not be vaccine available, but I really think in order to even address what Cindy was just talking about, that we need to have a plan of how we could do this if the vaccine is available. And I think there's been some talk of this, but is there any work actually being done on this, on planning for this?
Yes, there has, and we agree with you. Over the last several weeks, we've gotten our feet under us as far as rolling out the first clinics, but we've come to the same realization that it's going to take us way too long to deliver the doses for county residents at this pace. So over the weekend, we've started drafting a plan to really ramp up our efforts. There are ambitious goals in there, and we are going to finalize that plan this week. We've spoken with the county manager yesterday, and as we finalize that plan to ramp up, there is going to be some implications for increased staffing to be able to do that. And we are, again, hoping to finalize that plan this week and have a discussion with council on what that's going to look like. So yes, we do agree that we need to ramp up and get a lot bigger to meet the demand, and are working to do that.
Mr. Chair?
Cindy?
Because we don't have a meeting scheduled for next week, it being a holiday week, should we be prepared perhaps to have a special meeting in order to authorize any kind of extra staff, or is that something that potentially will wait until the 25th? I have concerns that we do this as quickly as possible when you know what you need.
Understood. So we'll work with the county manager this week to be able to coordinate how we go about approving that. So Mike, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, next. I raised my hand. Yeah, so we wouldn't be ready for a meeting next week. It is a very large discussion, which, as Kyle pointed out, started recently. So we need all of next week, frankly, for staff to do its work, to be prepared with a solid answers and a program approach for council on the following week.
Okay. Mark, can you go over a little bit on the road to recovery?
Sure.
Road to stay, or I think which is more like the road to stay where we are.
So yeah, thank you, Jamie. And just want to give a little bit of history because things have changed significantly. So as Kyle said, we're still using phasing. We have phasing for both the road to recovery and then also for vaccines. But a little history so that everybody is aware of where we're at and what has changed. If you go back into 2020, if you remember, there were opportunities for counties to move through phases to allow additional activities. It was county by county, and the counties had to make applications and demonstrate their capacity to address certain issues in order to move forward between the phases. San Juan County was in phase 2, which allowed a variety of activities. Starting in November, if you recall, mid-November, the governor imposed new restrictions based on increasing case counts, increasing hospitalizations, and concern with holiday travel, which essentially removed or put us all at a certain level. There was no more phases. It limited indoor social gatherings and a variety of other items. Those restrictions remained in place through January 10th. And last week, the governor listed a new program that applies statewide that's now called the Roadmap to Recovery. That Roadmap to Recovery also has phases, and the phases are there's a phase 1, phase 2, and the significant change is that we are no longer working as individual counties. We are working as a region, and that region that we are a part of is a new region for a slightly new region for us, slightly different in that we remain in the region with Whatcom County, Skagit County, Island County, and San Juan. Traditionally, we had also included Snohomish County in our region, but for this new Roadmap to Recovery, we are now a part of what's called the North Region, which is, again, Whatcom, Skagit Island, and San Juan. You move between the phases based on metrics, and so there are 4 metrics that we are measured against. The one is a trend in the 14-day rate of new COVID cases per 100,000 population, and they're looking for a declining trend in that. There's the trend in the 14-day rate of new COVID-19 hospitalization admissions per 100,000 population. Again, looking for a declining rate for that. The third metric is the average 7-day % of occupancy for ICU beds, staff beds within your region. And then the last one is the 7-day % of positive COVID-19 tests for your region, and they want that less than 10. And if I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see the latest report card for our region, which again includes the, and hopefully you guys can see that. And so we are the North region right here. And starting yesterday, we were in phase 1 like the rest of the state. You'll notice that we met 3 out of the 4 metrics. So we had a declining trend in the rate per 100,000 of new cases for our population. We met the requirement on ICU staff beds, and we also met the rate for the 7-day % of positive COVID tests. We did not meet the trend in hospital admissions per 100,000 population for new COVID patients. You can see that that was at a +50, and they're looking at to be declining or flat. And so significant increase there. This report card comes out on a weekly basis. It comes out, and I'm going to call it report card. It's really a review of the metrics. It comes out on Fridays, and we're notified on Friday. And depending on what happens, we either remain in the current phase or we can advance. You have to, or decline. You have to meet all 4 metrics to go from phase 1 to phase 2. And so we right now are in phase 1. If you look at and want to kind of foreshadow where we're going, so I'm going to kick over to the case count, and you'll notice that when they did the case count and compared us, it was during this time period right here, which we were declining in our region. I selected the 4 counties in our region. We were on a steady decline. That is going back up. And so I would anticipate this Friday that our rate per 100,000 will actually not be a negative. It'll be a positive. And you can see that in our region, this gray line is not confirmed yet, but it is going up significantly. And so for our region, those 4 counties, It appears that at least for the next several weeks, our rate per 100,000 for that 14 day positive percent of people, the number of folks who are positive is going to increase for several weeks, which means we're going to be remaining in phase 1 based on these current metrics for the next several weeks. Also, if the want to kind of touch a little bit on what the, again, this just shows you the map and what you have to remain. I can share this document with council if you want. It's on the state website. It talks about how you remain either in the phase you're in or how you go back. And again, it's on a weekly basis. And so this is a good document to have your hands on so you can see that. And then I just want to click over here to see if I can find the actual what is allowed. So this is the current phase. Let me just go ahead and see if I can increase the size of that. I guess maybe I can't. So we're in phase 1. And so similar to where we have been in the last 2 months, the social and at-home gathering size indoors remains prohibited. You can do outdoor gatherings with a max of 10 people from outside your household with a limit of 2 households. The church services are allowed at 25%. Retail stores, which are your grocery stores, convenience stores, pharmacies, all of that is at 25% with encouraging curbside pickup. Professional services, they strongly encourage remote work, but you can go to 25% capacity. Indoor personal services at 25% capacity. The restaurants, indoor dining is prohibited. Outdoor dining is allowed, which closes at 11 p.m. Maximum of 6 people per table, limit of 2 households per table. It provides for ceremonies for both weddings and funerals with a limit of no more than 30 people. So there are some things that are prohibited as far as indoor receptions, so on and so forth. Provides some indoor recreation and fitness. So it does allow appointment-based fitness training for one individual per 500 square feet on facilities for fitness work and some other low-risk, non-contact sporting events with a limiting of 5 athletes. Defines what's allowed for the outdoor sports and fitness establishments, and then also allows some indoor entertainment. As an example, we had a question from one of our museums, and they can do a private tour for an individual household of no more than 6 individuals. General admission is prohibited. And so there are some new things in there that are different than where we were in our restrictions from mid-November through the beginning of January, but significantly different from where we were in phase 2 in the prior reopening from 2020. So again, lots of changes. This is the new roadmap to recovery. The entire state is in phase 1. I anticipate, based on our current trends, that we're going to remain in phase 1 for the next several weeks. And so this is what will be allowed as far as the activities. Happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay. Council, just chime in if you have a guess or if you have a comment or a question. Oh, now I can see you again. Nothing, Christine. Cindy, do you have anything on this part? Okay. Thank you, Mark. Since that is new, it's good to know kind of where we are, and since it's new and somewhat changed, what is allowed and what's not allowed.
Yeah, and I'll just do just so folks know on the vaccine, we are working with our medical providers We have 3 that have gone through the approval process and are able now to make orders for vaccine. That will also go into our plans for how we're gearing up for vaccination clinics. And as Kyle's already mentioned, it comes down to supply, but our goal will be to have a staffing plan and a rotation in place to allow us, all dependent on supply, to either look at a 6-month or an 8-month goal to get vaccinations done. And so we are, that plan, as Kyle and Mike have already indicated, is in process. And the goal would be to get through upwards of 13,000 people here in the countywide in the next 6 months, supply dependent.
Christine.
I actually am curious if adding more providers adds to the allocation of vaccine, or is it simply by county?
Excellent question, Christine. Ideally, our providers will be able to get additional supply on top of what we're able to get. I know, as an example, in Island County, they are getting supply, as is their hospital, and the county is transferring their supply to the hospital, which is the Whidbey Health is doing the bulk of their vaccinations there. And so the goal would be to have us all be making resource requests, and then there are processes for us to be able to transfer vaccine to one another. So if folks have, as an example, let's say one of our medical providers is not able to get allocation, but has capacity, we're able to transfer vaccine to them so they can provide the immunizations, and vice versa. And so I'm hopeful that as more providers come on board and are making their allocation requests based on what they feel is their capacity to provide the immunizations, that will increase the amount of the amount of vaccine that's being allocated to our county. And I'm not sure if Kyle mentioned, just to kind of put things in perspective for folks, the phase 1B tier 1 population, those are over 70 and a few others. That's well over 4,000 people in our county. That's a significant bulk of our population. So as Kyle's indicated, it'll take us a while to get through that population, but that will, roughly be, 25% of our population is in that group, and that'll be a very good start. Provided we have the allocation to get that phase 1B tier 1 group vaccinated.
Anything else? Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kyle. Or Cindy, before I go, I just noticed you unmute yourself.
I did. I wanted to ask about, well, not really ask, just take this moment to remind people to please continue to mask, to please continue to social distance. And it was mentioned on the COVID call this morning that there is a new variant that's more contagious. And so it's really not the time to drop your diligence. It's not here yet that we know of, but if we're all acting properly, hopefully we won't have the problems that could be caused by a variant that is more contagious.
Great. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Mark. I would just ask council, normally take a quick break about now, but before we get into the next items, do you want to just take a break now for like till about 10 after 10? Is that okay?
Yes, it's fine by me.
Okay, council will recess until 10 after 10 o'clock.
We are back on the record.
Okay. Council's back from its recess. And before I go to the next item, Randy, you have your hand up. I'm sorry, I didn't see it before. And it went down. Okay. So our next item is a carryover from yesterday. Well, no, it's not. This is a different one. This is a resolution for a right-of-way acquisition on the Prune Alley project. Colin Huntemer, our Director of Public Works.
Morning, Council. You're correct, Mr. Stevens. Today is a new item, not a carryover, but we will get to the carryover just after this, hopefully. So you should have in your possession a staff report that's on my screen and an accompanying resolution. And as it's laid out in the staff report, I'm asking Council to consider a resolution today to, in a sense, perfect the resolution that Council adopted last year, allowing the county manager to accept all forms of right-of-way necessary for the Prune Alley, and by donation for the Prune Alley Road Improvement Project. Development in East Sound has a unique set of development regulations in county code, allowing donation of right-of-way in exchange for parking credits, and a revision or an improvement on the previous resolution is necessary to allow those transactions to take place. The PA's office has reviewed and approved the resolution to form, affirming that it serves in its intended function, and it's ready for council consideration and adoption.
Any questions or comments?
This hopefully isn't a very involved question, but can you explain the parking credit?
Yes, parking credits. I have on my screen here is a parking credit policy that was authored by Erica Shook, the Director of Community Development. And I was involved in parts of this, but parking credits are, and I'm really speaking on Erica's behalf. I'm not sure if she's on the call today. She is the authority of this subject, but that is a way of managing developing East Sound where, now I'll bring up the illustration scroll for Prune Alley. On my screen, north is to the right. So in instances, down here is Main Street. And as you come up towards, this is the pharmacy and the grocery store. And this is where the co-op currently resides. The Prune Alley projects are proposing in this instance to construct angled parking in front of the grocery store co-op. And these angled parking spaces are only allowed because the adjoining property owner is willing to donate right-of-way to provide for their construction. These parking spaces then become public parking because the right-of-way is now owned by the public, and the property owner is granted, in accordance with the policy that Erica has developed, is granted a number of parking credits towards the land use and development that is allowed on this property. So it's a mutual benefit of exchange that's not necessary for the street improvement projects, which would otherwise be constructed, as you see down here, with parallel parking all in the existing road right-of-way. But if an adjoining property owner, again, for mutual benefit, believes that this is the frontage improvements that they so desire, they can donate the right-of-way to allow for them, and then Erica, through her department, makes an administrative determination and awards or grants the property, and it runs with the land, a certain number of parking credits. And that whole process needs to be perfected with an acceptance of the deed. The council typically delegates to the county manager because it's an ongoing process tied with the capital project. And the resolution that before you today allows this whole project to be this whole process to be completed.
Thank you. Totally clear.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'm surprised we have to do a resolution. I thought we could always accept donations. Okay. If there are no more questions or comments, I'd accept a motion to approve the resolution.
You're muted, Cindy.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept this resolution as presented by Colin Huntemer.
Christine, now you're muted.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution accepting easements for the Prunelli Streets Improvement Project as presented. Any further discussion on this?
None.
Hearing none, or seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Let's see here. On our next item, I don't believe we are ready for that. Are we, Colin? The interlocal with the port?
That's correct, Mr. Stevens. Unfortunately, the transition between new council members and some clerical signatures regarding signature blocks and other items. I hope to bring that resolution, interlocal agreement before council here very shortly, but it is not ready today.
And as long as you are in the catbird seat right now, did you want to bring forward the carryover item? Because that did not get on the agenda, or I don't see it listed on the agenda. Concerning Prunelli.
So yesterday, this was one of the topics brought before council for direction. Ms. Wolf asked that we take a breather over a period of 24 hours and reach out to a number of businesses to inquire about their concerns or opinions regarding an accelerated construction schedule instead of 3 phases to build it all in 1 year in 2021. Jesse took the lead on most of those calls. He's the project manager here at Public Works, and I believe, Jesse, you're traveling. I know you're on the ferry, but maybe if you can hear, if you could give a brief summary of your efforts, or I can jump in.
Good morning, Council. This is Jesse with San Juan County Public Works. Thank you for the opportunity yesterday to reach out to some of the individual business owners. I know that Cindy, you also had participated in reaching out to some community members related to this work, but I did have the opportunity to talk to several of the restaurants, including, like you had requested, Rose's, the Skillet, the Kitchen, the Barnacle, as well as in past reach out talking and working with the Island Market and the Co-op and the Temple and Center. So overall, I felt like through those conversations, the general consensus was that everybody was very supportive of a 1-year path to construction, understanding that it would require construction to continue contiguously throughout the summer, and that would be a challenge, but that the benefit of not having construction the following 2 years or longer was very advantageous, both financially and just the interruption to workflow over the following years. So I'm happy to report back that it seemed everybody was on board, understanding that it was going to be a challenge.
Thank you, Jesse. And I'll add that the challenges that we are hearing surround, any project of this scope. We got circulation, we have access, day-to-day access, how the construction site is staged and left when the contractor goes home for the day. We have delays, construction delays. with flaggers. We have parking. I have on my screen a good aerial photo of East Sound and Prune Alley, and you can see there is a lot of parking that will be displaced on Prune Alley, and that will be pushed to side streets. Commercial access or deliveries to these businesses, we will have to work diligently to find ways that they can park on other streets, but those will be disrupted and interrupted. And then we have the general things in the construction project: noise, dust, and then just the visual aesthetics of downtown being torn up. I think everybody recognizes this will be very impactful. It will be very disruptive. We will do our best to minimize those and be adaptive throughout the construction season. And I appreciate Jesse and our opportunities to, again, check in with some of the businesses on Prune Alley and just to make sure that they are aware about what's to come. And if council was agreeable with this direction today, we will work on getting some plans and notifications out on the ground, identifying what can be expected. Probably on this Fern Street parcel is a good place to start community notification regarding the Prune Alley project. But we certainly want council's approval on this path forward before we start that outreach. And I will turn it back.
Cindy, any comments or questions?
I do. I would like to heartily thank the staff for helping me with that community outreach before we move forward with this. I was also able to speak with Lance over at the Orcas Chamber of Commerce, and he was able to notify his board, and we've gotten no feedback. So I think that everybody's pretty much on the same page at this point, and I really appreciate you all and my colleagues also for allowing us to take this pause to make sure that outreach was done before we make a final decision. So when you're ready to entertain a motion, I would be happy to make one.
Thank you. Christine, do you have any comment or question given the new information?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we direct the county engineer to begin planning and outreach. Is that what you want there, Colin? For a 1-year program to complete the Prune Alley project.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to direct staff or the county engineer to pursue construction in a single phase during 2021. That's not your exact wording, Cindy. I'm sorry, I couldn't get it quite perfect. And it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none or hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0, and one more step in making this project a reality. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Thank you, council, and thank you, Jesse. That's all I have for you today.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next up is the legislative priorities that we talked about, I believe, in our retreat. Time seems to be flying by. And just need to find them. Let's see. Okay, so did everybody have a chance to look at them? Or they should be exactly what we talked about before, but with the new council, it'd be good to have the approval of this council.
As we stated in retreat last week, and the determination is that it is very acceptable for me.
I did want to make sure that the water survey got back on the radar, and that I was proposing for the state legislative portion of it that we put in a, and maybe we can adopt it separately, but a resolution to support Governor Inslee's cap and trade carbon.
You know, we could probably do that separately when the legislation comes up, if that's
Sure.
acceptable. And let's see. And we were going to push for that water survey because that was a that was kind of an earmark thing. It wasn't really legislation.
Okay.
So I've got that on my list. That was, and particularly after some of our discussions yesterday, that was, I think, a really good idea.
Thank you. Other than that, I'm
So,
happy with the agenda or with the
okay.
resolution.
Well, if there's no further discussion or suggested changes, I'd entertain a motion to approve the legislative priorities.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a resolution affirming the 2021 legislative priorities. Forgive me.
Second. Yes, I second. We're going to get good at this, Christine.
We're already good at this.
Yeah, you guys are doing fine. You're doing fine. It's been moved and seconded to approve the legislative priorities for 2021. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Okay. Next up, I believe, is the review of the septic repair loan program. I brought this up, or I put it on the agenda because it's a program that's come into focus recently, and I sent out, and I thought it would be worth reviewing how it operates and how we are managing it. And I believe that Kyle Dodd is going to, and I'm not sure if Mark is going to be presenting also. But this, in my understanding, is this is a program through the Department of Ecology. It's a revolving loan program. And every 5 years, they have provided additional funds for the loan program. And it's to repair failing septic systems at a loan rate of 4% and a maximum of 5 years. And before I go any further, I'm going to ask Kyle to, I know you had prepared some things.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Kyle Dodd back again. So as Councilmember Stevens introduced, this loan program, it supports our county operation and maintenance program. So we require property owners with on-site sewage systems to proactively inspect their systems at certain frequencies. And this program ensures that when failures are found, that there is a county option to repair those systems if needed. What we have seen over the last couple decades is that banks can be very rigid with loan-to-value, credit score, and debt to income. So the county started this program back in 1991 to again ensure that there was a fallback to be able to repair failing septic systems. So if a property owner did not meet very strict criteria, we didn't have surfacing sewage continuing to potentially contaminate groundwater. So this program is not unique to our county. Other counties in Washington State have had programs for several years. Several of them have recently signed on to a regional loan program that is administered by a nonprofit entity and manages on behalf of counties. We still operate our own program. So a bit of history, the county has administered 6 previous loan projects or contracts with Ecology over varying years. As Councilmember Stevens mentioned, the current contract and project is a 5-year project, but the time ranges have varied, again, dating back to 1991. So over those previous 6, dating up until the 2017 when we started the current project, we had supported 133 both residential and commercial on-site sewage repairs countywide, with a total cost of about $1.7 million. We have had relatively few number of defaults. But if there does happen to be one, there is some loan loss reserve to cover those. Again, because this is a revolving loan program. As I mentioned, this is a 5-year project. So as we make loans to county residents, we submit a reimbursement request to Ecology, which essentially draws down our loan amount from them. So we have a current loan amount approved with Ecology of $300,000. And again, as we've made loans on this current project, I think we have 5 that have been completed with an approximate value of just over $200,000. We have been making requests to Ecology for reimbursement of that. And once the project is completed at the end of this year, we enter into a repayment program with them. And the repayment is over 5 years at 1%. So that's how the revolving end of this project works, is that we loan the money out at 4%, and we pay back Ecology at 1%, which leaves a balance that then can go back into the program and be there and available for new applicants that need to take advantage of this. So some details about our local project. Our local program is administered in a partnership between Health and Community Services and the Auditor's Office. So the initial application is made to Health and Community Services with bids for the proposed work. We ensure that the project meets eligible criteria. In other words, verifying that it is actually a repair and that we have an approved repair design on file. This project is not to fund a new construction or an expansion, somebody who wants to add a bedroom. This is for repairing failing septic systems. We also verify that all the contractors involved, from the licensed installer to the electricians, that those contractors are not on the federal excluded parties list. So that's if they have any federal judgments against them, they would not be allowed to participate in this funding mechanism. So once we do that, we forward that application on to the auditor's office for a financial review. And the auditor's office completes a financial review. I don't know all the details, but a determination is made essentially based on their ability to pay. And there can be some extenuating circumstances. So whereas, as I mentioned before, that banks can be very rigid with loan to value and debt to income, our main goal with this program is that we get septic systems repaired. If they are surfacing, that surfacing sewage has the ability to contaminate surfacing groundwater. So sometimes there is some conversation back and forth between the auditor's office and health regarding the potential public health impact of a certain failure in order to move a project forward. So the auditor's review, there's also a title report, as I mentioned, and out of that, they'll either get an approval or denial. If they are approved, the on-site sewage system is installed, and that follows the normal process back here in Health and Community Services, where our staff does the final inspection, grants final approval, and then we report that information back to the auditor's office. They drop the final loan documents, have borrowers sign, and make payment to the contractor. So that's a general overview, both of the contract and kind of how the program works. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I was wondering, I guess where some of my concern comes up, Kyle, is in reading the contract with Ecology and the background on their website, and I don't know if over time it's dropped off, but the original intent and prioritization of the program was shoreline contamination, surface water contamination, and kind of last was just a failing system. And in their contract, it calls for prioritization. Have we had a need to prioritize, or do we prioritize? I guess are we prioritizing? I just don't want to endanger the next contract when it comes down.
Understood. And we do have a prioritization as part of the application. So obviously, first priority is a failing septic system that jeopardizes a shellfish area or drinking water source. Second priority would be a failure that jeopardizes a freshwater lake. Third priority would be other shoreline failures. And the last priority would just be any failing septic system. So that is part of the approval, and our staff in health makes a checkbox as part of our approval. The way it has worked out in practicality in our county is that the way these failures come about, we're rarely in a position where we have 2 or 3 of them at one time where we need to decide between a prioritization. Obviously, the criteria are there in that case that if we needed to prioritize and we were down to a specific level of funding, we would look back to that criteria. But with the current project and previous projects, that hasn't been our, I guess, experience with these. So with the project that ended in 2016, we were down to the last month and a half in order to spend out that money. And the way it's looking in 2021 here, when this project is set to expire, will likely be down to the end of it as well. So I guess all that to say that it's, I guess, likening it to some of our housing projects where they can kind of all be applied for at one time and we can prioritize. Failing septic systems don't lend themselves to kind of a timely failure and application, and we don't want to be holding these for months at a time to stack up several in order to prioritize them against one another when they occur. We have specific time frames when we require those to be repaired. So kind of a long-winded answer, but I think that gives some context. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and how are we I mean, I know another part of it is to advertise. How are we advertising? Because I mean, I see it as one of the funds that we review and approve in our budgeting process, but doesn't seem like it's as well known as we might think.
Sure. And those that need to take advantage of this are a very select audience. And when we discover failures, either through our on-site sewage O&M program or through just a neighbor complaint, we write a failure letter with a specific time frame for property owners to contact a licensed designer and get the repair process going. It's in those direct letters to those property owners with failures that we notify them specifically of this program as a funding option.
Mike, did you have a question or comment?
You actually asked the question that I was going to ask. I guess the other part of that for Kyle was, I'm sure that the septic installers are very aware of the program. They would be another source of information or advertising. Would you agree with that?
That's absolutely the case. So I would add designers on there as well. So our septic professional community, as they're interfacing with property owners that are facing these situations, they act as a messenger for us as well, in addition to the failure letter. So they're often the first or second contact from the property owner, and if there's indication that funding will be a concern, then both the septic designer and the septic installer are aware of the program and can educate the property owners as well.
Go ahead, Mike.
Kyle, with respect to the $300,000 that we received from Ecology, how's that number derived? Is that just a number they gave us, or was that our ask? And can that number be adjusted based on local demand?
That number can be adjusted. That was a number that I specifically applied for based on, again, previous experience and what I think we could utilize in the 5-year project timeframe. And if we don't utilize that, it basically just decreases the amount that we need to pay back. Was that your question regarding adjustment to that? So in other words, if we end up at the end of this year only utilizing 250,000 of the 300, then the project closes out and our repayment program is calculated based on that $250,000 utilized.
I've got one further question. When you were saying it's a select group, but if someone is doing their self-inspection and realizes they've got a failing system, couldn't they request this? Or why does it have to be you who instigates it?
Yeah, and it doesn't. We have this. Your point is well taken to advertise this more broadly. We have it on our website, and we again we're typically always involved as failures get turned into us. But you're right. There could be an opportunity where a property owner who is doing their inspection, they have kind of determined, oh, I have a failure, and before that inspection is reported to us, they may start thinking about how am I going to go about funding this. So we can look for opportunities to be more proactive, and I think in the past we have included this in our routine operation and maintenance letters. It has been a minute since I've looked at one of those, but when we do our postcard reminders for those to do inspections, we have included language on there in the past, and I can ensure that that we're still doing that moving forward. So as homeowners get reminders and or letters from the county that their inspections are due, that we can make it clear that this funding source is available.
Thank you. Christine?
I do think that what I was kind of thinking about in my mind was mostly just addressed, but it actually seems to me that our sort of target audience may be the person that won't be calling the septic repair guy to come out and look, meaning, somebody who doesn't have the budget to facilitate having it fixed. And this loan program really would be of benefit to somebody who doesn't have a neighbor complaining and who doesn't necessarily take the steps to call to remedy it without the knowledge of this repair program. I also noted in the agreement, some talk about a class that could be had for, I can't remember the name of it, and I wish I could off the top of my head, and it's in front of me, but of course it's a lot of words. Is there something within our county that, there is a class provided?
So I think what you're referring to is the homeowner training program for homeowners to be able to be trained to do their own inspections. And in the agreement, they took language out of our application that specifies how our local program works. So homeowners are allowed to perform their own septic inspections on a routine basis if they don't have a proprietary type system. So if it's a simple gravity or pressure system that doesn't have a aerobic treatment unit or other technology that's proprietary, homeowners are allowed to do their own routine inspections. And the county puts on a class to be able to walk those homeowners through the process and educate them on how to do that. So I think what you're referring to is just specifics that were included in the contract that were taken out of our application regarding our local program.
Understood.
Cindy, your hand's back up.
I'd like to say I have attended those classes, and they are good, and I recommend them to anybody who's out there who's the proud owner of a septic system. It's informational, and you may end up deciding that you want to take advantage of the professional services of a septic service person. I would be very much in support of making sure that there is language on that reminder card that goes out to everybody about inspections that does let them know that this loan is available. I think that's fair in terms of providing equity of access.
I thank you for the feedback on the classes, and again, I will make sure that when we're sending our reminders that there is language regarding the program.
I share Cindy's comment in that most everyone I know that has taken that class has decided that they are going to employ a professional inspector instead of doing it themselves.
You get a very detailed close-up look utilizing all 5 senses when you're leaning over a septic tank.
I am currently very pleased that I live in town.
Okay, those are my questions. I just mainly wanted to bring us up to speed on how we're operating and make sure we all understood. And thank you, Kyle, about taking the suggestion that we need to advertise a little more broadly on this. Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Stevens. I just, and Kyle was being modest in that, just wanted to let the council know and the community know that our overall rate of failure is very low. And so the number of failing septic systems is low compared to, I say, elsewhere in the state. We have some of the best water quality in the state from the shellfish growing area beds. And our professional community, the installers and designers, and then the homeowners taking care of their systems have done an excellent job. So the program as a whole is very robust, and they do an excellent job. And I came from an area that had a significantly higher failure rate, and we did significantly more loans to repair those. And coming up here, it was the breath of fresh air so to speak. And we are doing quite well here in the county when it comes to septic systems and the lower rate of failures. So hats off to Kyle and his crew for that.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, I think that finishes up. Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
There was a question in my mind about how the money flows for this. Is this a flows? But I was wondering why the loans aren't repayable to the treasurer's office rather than to the auditors. Is the treasurer not the person who usually takes in funds?
Yeah, and I guess I don't have a very good answer to that, other than this is the way it has been done, and I think it is done in other counties. It's not so much when we get to the place where the repayment occurs, that's done through a contractor set up. So we can certainly look at reworking that. But that's the way it has been done in the past.
And that might be just a legacy thing of when it was started. Would that be right, Kyle?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. Let's see. I don't see any other hand. Oh, Rhonda, you have your hand up. Rhonda Peterson, our county treasurer.
Yeah, I might be able to answer that question for you, Cindy. I believe that when that payment is paid back, it goes into a separate account and then it is transferred into the main treasurer's account. So it does flow through the treasurer's account eventually. Does that answer your question?
Looks like she's shaking her head, yes. Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, thank you very much, Mark and Kyle. We will move on to our next item, which is discussion and possible action on vacation rental moratorium. And we discussed this briefly yesterday, but it was on for the agenda today. I just want you to know that I had talked to Amy Beery yesterday, and we went over this, and I believe we went over the process somewhat yesterday, but anyway, we can declare the moratorium within 60 days. We need to have a public hearing with findings as to why we are having, why we place the moratorium. At that time, we also need to have a work plan and a scope of work, and in the findings of why we're doing this is also helps direct staff on what they're going to put their efforts towards on any changes. Some of this we will have on the January 25th, be able to discuss this in greater detail with staff, or we can now. I'm not sure if Erica's not on the call. Is she, Mike, or expect? Oh, there she is. So anyway, does anybody have any comments before I was going to call on Erica, because she had, when we had talked about it yesterday, she had requested some explanation or input from council. Mike, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm probably going to say what Erica will say, but I think in this conversation, following up on yesterday's conversation, what staff would like to know is what are the questions that council has, and so it'll help us prepare and focus the discussion intended for the 25th.
Erica, do you want to add something to that?
Nope, that's correct. I just need to know what data and information you all would like for us to help with the discussion on the 25th.
Okay. Cindy, I'll go to you I will go to you first.
The things I definitely would like to know are how many vacation rental permits have been filed since November, or actually since the Planning Commission asked for a moratorium on November 20th. I would like to know where the vacation rental permits have been placed or where they have been approved in terms of neighborhoods over the course of the last year and over the course of the last and where they exist at this point in time. So in other words, what the increase is and map with a density of where the vacation rentals are situated right now.
Christine?
I think that, what Cindy has asked initially covers any questions I might have. Although, do I have the opportunity to, spend sort of the day with this? I know I'm getting emails, I'm getting questions, and do I have the ability, in a timely fashion to ask you, Erica, tomorrow or Friday, if additional questions arise?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I would be interested, Erica, in a little bit variation of what Cindy's asking, because it also came up in public comment. Like what the things we instituted in 2018, part of those are just barely coming to fruition this year or at the end of 2020, which is if you don't send in your compliance report for 2 years, you're automatically dropped. And I don't know if by the 25th you'd had time to figure that out, but I would be interested to know in the last couple of years kind of what the net change is in permits. And because we had a lot of people drop out when they had to send in their compliance and gave up their permit, and we've had more permits or more applications come in. So I'd just be kind of interested in those net change numbers. I think Cindy said a little bit about that also in her request. And I think for the 25th, what I would also like to know, and particularly maybe not if you can get it done by the 25th, but definitely before we do the public hearing, which if we pass the resolution is scheduled for February 23rd, I think, somewhere around there. It's like 41 days. So what could be done? Well, just like taking the Planning Commission's recommendations, because those are the things that keep coming up over and over. What could be done? What's a simple fix and what's not a simple fix? Or what's downright illegal? I don't know. And if you could also, in your thinking anyway, in when I'm saying simple and not simple, is how that would affect enforcement of them. Is this helping you? Is this giving you? I'm trying to make sure we get focused without going too much.
Yes, this is very helpful. I think we already had a start on putting some of this stuff together in April. I did it in April, so I'm going to repeat the same kind of information, and then we'll probably do some scrambling to get some of our our GIS maps updated with things that have been abandoned, so that the mapping is updated. So we will make a push so that we've got good data for the 25th. So yeah, this works. This is fine. I understand where you're going.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it'll be helpful if Erica updates her annual report. And then the other thought I had is just a brief characterization of the existing ordinance, just a little discussion of what it does and why the council made those decisions. Just a little bit of background so we understand why we did what we did in that ordinance as kind of a basis for moving forward. Try to characterize that. And then Ms. Vera pointed out some of the legal issues, and then the larger issue that folks have mentioned, whether you can separate the permit from the land. And so that's, I don't know if we'll have a timely answer on the 25th, but those are some of the kind of legal questions that we'll track down and that were mentioned yesterday.
And I believe that is one of the Planning Commission, one of those 6 or 7 recommendations. And I'm not sure how this works. I see Amy's, when it says others from chat, Amy is in there. She had an eye appointment this morning. So I don't know if she is available or not, but we haven't had any of those questions come up, so.
I do notice, Mr. Chair, that if you hover over her name, it says request to join, and that's true for anybody in that list. And I don't know if they have to have be given access.
Well, we'll click on it. Okay. Well, I put it in there. I don't see her appearing, but she did, well, if there's no further direction for Erica, Erica, do you have any additional questions? Okay. Then I would move, well, I'm not moving, but I would change direction here and go to the moratorium resolution that Amy put together with direction. As I said, I've got on the high points here that we would conduct a public meeting within 60 days. We would be setting a public hearing for Tuesday, February 23rd regarding this. That I believe is 41 or 42 days, and that's a day we are meeting. As Amy had suggested that we do it before the 60 days. And then in the actual be it resolved that we're doing a 6-month moratorium. And during this time, no new applications shall be accepted as complete by any county department, and no pending incomplete application shall be accepted by the department, and that it would commence at 12:01 Wednesday morning. So we'd have a definite time. Does that all shake out with you, Erica? And clear? Okay. One good thing about this is at least you can read people's head nods. Or doing it this way. Okay, any other comments or discussion, or do we want to place this on the table? I'm looking to council.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Go ahead, Cindy.
I move that we adopt this resolution on vacation rental permit moratoriums as written by Amy Vera. I believe that's 01.11.21. And that while this moratorium is in effect, no new applications for vacation rental permits shall be accepted as complete by any county department, and no currently pending incomplete application shall be accepted as complete by any county department.
I second.
Can I condense that just a little bit, Cindy?
You may, I read it as Amy asked me to, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. It's been moved and seconded to enact a moratorium on vacation rentals of residence or accessory dwelling units, and that while this moratorium is in effect, no new applications for vacation rental permit shall be accepted as complete by any county department, and no currently pending incomplete application shall be accepted as complete by any county department. Any further discussion on this?
I don't have further discussion. I wish I had just sort of jumped in right before Cindy made the motion, but based on some communication I'm receiving, I just want to reiterate that this is a pause button. I think that the overall sense of what's happening here is we're making a decision that is, good now, moving forward eternally. But I just want to reiterate that for folks who were not, privy to the meeting yesterday, that we are now entering a process that allows for them to participate.
That's a good point. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, seeing no further conversation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries 3-0. Okay, we're off and running on that one.
Thank you.
Okay, the next part of the agenda, it's our first time we'll be doing this, is our council and legislative updates, and Mike's updates and Ingrid's updates. And it looks like we have also one advisory committee appointment to make. So let me get my pictures back. Cindy, do you want to lead off with any updates you have?
Sure.
And it's okay if you say none.
Well, I just wanted to let you both know that I've had the opportunity to speak to both our governor's office and our congressman yesterday, and John Vicina from Ferries as well. So I had a number of introductory conversations this week, and I presented our legislative priorities as agreed, and had a good conversation with Congressman Larson about what kind of process we can expect nationally this week, and it's pretty congruent with what you've heard on the news. So that's really what I've got right now.
Great. Christine.
I think you'd be surprised to know that mine are the exact same. And as well, they were very enlightening, really, really great. And I'm happy to be starting this process.
Great. Okay. Let's see, on tomorrow through the Association of Counties, I'll be in a meeting with Senator Murray's office to likewise go over our priorities. On Thursday, I'll be attending virtually the North Sound Behavioral Health Administrative Services board meeting. And also on Thursday is, because I'm chair of the Ecosystem Coordinating Board for the Puget Sound Partnership, about twice a year they have what they call an all board chairs meeting, so that we can all coordinate the work that we are doing. So that is generally pretty interesting. So then I'll have more to talk about. Part of what we'll be talking about also with Senator Murray is infrastructure needs. It's probably going to mainly focus on our COVID response and COVID vaccination needs, as well as on the economic side, infrastructure possibilities. And I think it'd be a good time to bring up culverts and fish passage culverts. That's coming around again. That's one of the priorities of our Public Works Department this year. And it also puts people to work at good paying jobs. Mike, and that's all of my updates.
Yeah, following along on the culvert discussion, we had 2 culverts that blew out last February on Orcas, and we put in temporary culverts, but those will have to be replaced with much larger fish passage type culverts, and that's a pretty expensive project. So any funding we can get from the state would be welcome for those projects. Just kind of in general, we'll keep the department by department reviews going on the upcoming council agendas. And they're really the overriding thing for me to contemplate and work on with others is really the vaccine discussion that we had today, and the need to figure out a way to get this county vaccinated in the most expeditious manner possible. So that'll necessitate some discussions, definitely on the staffing side. And so I think I would, with the EOC, we borrowed staff from other departments and folks from the community, and I think we'll go back to doing that and augment that a little bit to put together a program for council to consider when they meet next. So it's kind of a large thing on my to-do list right now. Thank you.
Ingrid.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I just wanted to remind council and the public that we will not be meeting next week because of Martin Luther King Day on the 18th. But our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 25th, and then followed by a meeting on Tuesday, the next day, on January 26th. And that's all I have.
Great. Okay. Then we'll move on to the advisory committee appointment. Looks like we have an application to appoint Becky Day. Leave this up to Christine.
I move that we appoint Becky Day to the San Juan Island Library Board of Trustees.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Becky Day to the San Juan Island Library Board of Trustees. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing none. Motion passes 3-0. And that brings us to the end of the agenda, unless anyone has any further comments as you launch into the week and a mountain of emails.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to say to everybody, happy Inauguration Day coming up, and stay safe.
Definitely. Thank you. Okay. Well, with that, I will adjourn the meeting of January 12th at 11:13. Thank you. Thanks for the good action today.
Thank you.
Thank you.